There we go. With any luck, we're going to get it both ways now. So as I previously said, when I asked AI to generate a picture of a server room, it gave me an image like the one you see there. And if you've ever been in a server room, that is what they look like. Artificial intelligence, also called machine learning, is a software system based on neural networks that has recently blossomed thanks to powerful new computing resources. AI has enabled effective voice and image recognition, as well as the ability to generate synthetic imagery and speech. I'm sure a lot of you remember back to the old Windows 3.x days when the computer booted up really slowly and the modems made noises when they connected and things were oh so very slow. Well, all that speed that we now see that has manifested into our phones enables us to, in other computers, to be able to do things a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. But is it really intelligent? I sometimes like to use comparisons to help you understand things. Although it's called artificial intelligence, the term is somewhat inaccurate. What the computer system does is closer to a calculator than what your brain does. Think of artificial intelligence like artificial coconut. It's imitation intelligence, and it mimics intelligence, but it doesn't come from that nut from the coconut tree. It comes from chemicals, just like artificial intelligence. Generative AI is an AI model that produces original output like an image or a text. And some AI summarize and reorganize, some identify, and so on. But an AI that actually generates something like art or a story is especially popular right now. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today is generative AI. Is AI safe? We're also worried about it. And the answer to that is yes and no. I was working on an image of a human, and it kept on giving me very, very large breasts. And so I tried to tag it to say, I want an image with small breasts. And it came back that that was a banned word. And I was shocked for a moment because I wasn't going for anything big. I just wanted to see something kind of small. And it said, no, can't use that word at all. And so a site's content policy will ban hate, harassment, violence, sexual and shocking content, illegal activity, deception, and spam. And it can flag that illegal content, but this is where safety comes in. Depending on how you ask the question to the AI, it may or may not answer you. If you ask AI how to hotwire a car, it's probably going to turn you down and come back with a response like the one to small breasts and say, that's illegal. I can't tell you how to do that. But if you ask a chat AI to develop a storyline that includes a character that needs to hotwire a car to save a child's life, the AI will likely give you detailed instructions on how to do that. So it's fairly easy to trick AI into giving you what you want, as long as you can just be one step ahead of the AI. I used flat-chested to get around the breast word. And that got me what I was looking for in the human generation that I was trying to accomplish. An important part to remember is that not all AI generated works are necessarily correct, and they may not reflect reality at all. And this may not matter if your artwork is fantasy based, but it's especially important to note when you're generating human images. Take a look at the hands and feet in this image, and I'm going to pass it around so that you guys can see it a little bit better. The left foot has been rendered as a right foot. The right hand is odd. It looks a little like a foot to me. So when you see it, you'll notice that. And this was a very interesting piece of work because I actually ended up using this one because it was the best I got out of several tries. I didn't get any better hands or feet on this martial arts person, which is relatively flat-chested, but not completely flat-chested in this photo or in this rendering. who owns AI generated art? This is a really interesting point. If you subscribe to an AI engine, be sure and read your software agreement with who you're subscribing to. When I started using Midjourney, you could get a free trial, but it didn't allow you to actually use your images in any way that would be an art show or a possible sale of it. Also, with AI generated art, the artists may not have a copyright. There is currently one decision in a federal court about some characters for a graphic novel that were generated using AI, and the graphic novelist was told by the court that they do not have a copyright on the characters generated by AI. There could be additional decisions down the road, and that could change. But right now, we're using an image of mine, Cosmic Cat, for our challenge next month. And you all just feel free to use that image away because it is not copyrighted. It was created with AI, and I'm also very happy to share it with you. Be careful with AI because art based on trademark brands or famous people may breach those people's copyright. So you just can't be going crazy with saying, give me a rendition of, for instance, Elvis or Freddie Mercury or anybody else whose likeness may have a copyright or a trademark on it. The image that I'm showing you here, I'm going to pass this one around too, because this image looks pretty good on the screen. And in this image, I generated it because we were given an invitation to the Art Hop in Folsom on the second Saturday. So any Placerville artist that wants to go down to Folsom to the Art Hop can do so. And there's contact information on our website. We sent out a blast last week. And when I was talking to the Folsom people about advertising, I said, it's so much better with an image. Do you have an image? And they said, oh, no, we don't really have anything that's any good. And so I said, oh, okay, I'll generate something on AI and send it over to you, and we'll do something like that. And so I sent this over to the woman who we're supposed to reach out to for the Art Hop, and also to the city manager that was contact. And the city manager emailed me immediately back, and she said, can you tell me approximately when this photo was taken?
Right.
And so my prompt here was Art Festival, Sutter Street, Folsom, California, and I came up with this. And like I say, it looks pretty good on the screen, but those of you who have been seeing that photo passed around are going to notice that the first guy, and let me see if I can get my cursor to show on the screen. No, it's not. But the first guy under the tent looks like he kind of has his head on backwards. He's just screwed around under that tent to the point that it's completely uncomfortable. And so if you were going to print this in a larger format, that becomes immediately visible where it's not so noticeable on a screen.
So I'm very familiar with Art Up, and I do suggest that one way or another, this image disappear because nobody can have tents at their event.
Nobody can what?
Have tents.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So this shouldn't, and what I saw it and I said, wow, when was that taken? Because I have been at several,
right.
and I will be there next month.
Well,
and one of the specifications is absolutely no tent.
That's really interesting because they didn't push back on that part of it at all when I sent it to them for approval of the image. And who wants to do Art Hop in Folsom in August from 4 to 8 in the evening without a tent?
Because you're not really on the, it's pretty shaded. It's pretty well organized. I mean, have you been to one of theirs?
No, I have not. I have not. And I'm not doing the August one either.
No, you're under the arcades. But anyways, you can't have tents.
Okay, good to know. And we only used it on our blast, and Sue may have it in the newsletter, but she can take it out if she likes. So what do you do if you see an artist's signature or website or something else on your rendering? And this was a question that's come up a few times in the art that I've done, especially when I was working on that ninja person. AI kept wanting to sign the artwork. And so I did a little bit of a drill down asking the question of, why am I seeing websites and signatures on artwork that I've done? So as I pass this horse around, you're going to see there's a www in the bottom right corner. And the answer that came up to that question was AI is learning from the artwork that it collects. And because artists sign their artwork, AI wants to sign its artwork, or it's collected images from sites that have a www on them. So it's going to put a www on its work. I don't believe it's copying them directly, because anytime I found a signature or time I found a web address, I attempt to investigate that signature to see if it's connected to a real person, and that web address to see if it's connected to a website. And so far, my results have been 0 matches. And that's made me fairly comfortable with redacting that kind of stuff from the images that I've been creating. Don't mislead your audience about AI's involvement. When sharing your work, proactively disclose involvement in your work. Anytime that I frame something, anytime that I wrap a print for sale, I put a tag in it that says created with AI via Midjourney by Lynell Phillips. And I've been very transparent with my work. What you're seeing on the screen is a person that wasn't completely transparent with his work. And this image made quite big news. This was entered in a state fair in Colorado. It took a first place ribbon, and it was not disclosed that the artwork was AI generated. And one of the reasons I began to do this AI generated artwork was one of our members, Bruce Grunzel, reached out to me and pointed out this example that had been entered in this Colorado State Fair and had won without being disclosed as being AI, and said, this is something PAA really needs to get ahead of. We need to be paying attention to this and not just let it slip through. So my reaction was to learn what software this work had been created in, because this is not a great example of it, but there's some more examples on the internet that'll show you a little bit more of what's going on in that really bright bubble in the center. And if you get a really good example of this, it's a pretty amazing piece. And I researched and found out that the artist had created this with Midjourney, AI Midjourney. And so I decided to investigate AI Midjourney to see what it was all about. And that's how I got into it. And then I started getting some things that looked kind of interesting, and I immediately reached out to our show chairs to see if this is something that could be included in our member shows. And feedback from our members was, we don't really have a problem with AI being included, but we don't want AI landscapes being judged against hand-painted landscapes. And so our decision has been to keep AI into a miscellaneous category and hopefully eventually into its own category. But I've been told by the show chairs for both our member shows and our Motherlode show that I can enter that in our shows. And since I was the show chair for the Harris show, I entered it. And so I do have an AI piece hanging in Harris right now. Image generating AI programs. Thank you to Bill Robinson for sending me this list. And I also did some collaboration with Don Jaskowski for this. And I appreciate both of their feedback and comments. DALL-E is the best for user friendliness. One of the things that Bill said in his comments to me was he found that there were quite a few limitations with DALL-E, and he's now moved on to the beta version of ArtSpace, which is available for a one-time fee. Midjourney is best for photorealistic art. I think it's also fabulous for fantasy. Crayon is best for free access. And I know that some of you have asked about that specifically. Where can we practice and learn about this and not have to pay? Jasper Art is best for professional use. Night Cafe is best for seasoned AI artists, and Deep AI best for customization. There's lots of other options out there. Once again, be sure and look at what you're allowed to do with the program in terms of your use of your images from the program after you generate them. And as long as whatever version you're using, you're fine with what they allow you to do, then go for it. Use different ones, see what you can do. Some are great at uploading images and putting AI on top of your own images. So there's lots of options out there. The way you work with AI is you use a prompt and your words to generate an image. So sometimes simple prompts work quite well. The prompt for this image was rutilated quartz crystal on black background. And at the time I was at the state fair and I was trying to get a couple of images of rocks that would look interesting to put up at the fair. I was at the county fair, not the state fair, at the county fair, because we were sharing the room, Fine Arts was sharing the room with the rock and mineral people. And I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful image, but I collect crystals, and there's just enough wrong with this image that I didn't feel comfortable putting it up in front of a bunch of rock hounds. I did a horse image, and Donna Nelson was saying to me, you know, the thing that really disturbs me about that image is the bridle doesn't go all the way across the horse's head. And I said, oh my God, I didn't even notice that because I'm not a horse person, but I knew enough about rocks to know that this one was not quite right enough that I was going to get a lot of pushback about it from those rock people. So I moved on to fantasy animals instead, gave up on the rocks. How does a prompt work? The software converts the text input into a representation of an image by a model called the prior. That's breaking down text input to understand its meaning. The prior creates a corresponding image based on the text, which is then decoded and turned into an actual image. I would imagine there's been a lot of programming hours behind pointing the machine in the right direction to be able to create the priors. That doesn't just come by putting a couple of chips on a channel and thinking it's all going to happen. So there have been some developers behind there training the AI to understand and create the prior and then generate a new image off that prior. In Midjourney, the first thing that happens is a model comes up with 4 options, and I'm going to pass around the way that image comes up in this image, my prompt was illustrated still life with vase, flowers, candles, and writing crop. And you'll see when the 4-up comes around, there's some odd little things in there, like, what is this and where did it come from? And so then the question to you as the artist is, does that make it more intriguing to you, or do you need to throw it out because of its lack of realism? And that's where you as an artist comes into the decision-making process with AI art. You become the creator and the curator as much as the artist, but you have to recognize what's good. I happen to like all of these still lifes, and I haven't really upsized them or done anything with them because you guys told me I couldn't compete in your still life division at the member show. So I just go off on a tangent since I can't really be in the real world with my art and get more crazy with it. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that I asked, well, the first thing I did with the presentation is I did what we all do. And I went to PowerPoint's clip art and I pulled in a server room. And then I'm like, oh, I could do better than that. I could go put that in AI and see what it gives me. And so it gave me some server room choices. And I like this one because a lot of them had messy wires and stuff on the floor. And I know, having been in server rooms before, that that's not happening. So this one was nice and clean. And so I used this image. But then I went back and said to it, well, tell me what you imagine Discord servers creating Midjourney art would look like. So what you saw in the previous image was what we think the computer looks like. And This image represents what the computer thinks is going on inside its brain. And I thought that that was very fascinating because it gets really crazy. And I'm going to pass around two more here that I used the exact same prompt on. The prompt is in the back. And you'll see this computer really thinks a lot of itself when it's creating art using Discord servers and Midjourney. It just thinks it is a wild kind of place to live. And I thought that was so fascinating. That its mind is a lot more like mine than the computer. I want to talk for a minute about how Bill Robinson in the room here, and thank you, Bill, for contributing to this presentation, used DALL-E and ArtSpace AI software to assist in his creation of his banner for this year's Banner on Parade. By the way, this year's banners, including Bill's, are currently on display on Main Street in Placerville. So be sure and stop in and take a look, and those will come down in a bit and go on auction, and be sure and bid on the auction for those. I own a couple and love having them on my house. Bill generated his original image using the prompt oil painting of a multicolored sunrise through a few big pine trees in the mountains. And he got an image like the one we see on the screen here. And he then cropped the image to better fit the size of a banner. And so we now see that image being cropped down using software or just a cropping tool to make it into a banner size. But then Bill got a little worried about painting all of that texture and in there. And so he said he wanted to simplify the image. And so he generated another image with the prompt, a digital painting using solid colors of a sunrise over the mountains with the valley in the background and a huge pine tree. And so this image was generated, and he then cropped that image to use as a guide to help him paint his banner. And then finally, the last picture that we have is Bill's banner, which was awarded an honorable mention for Banners on Parade. So this is how an artist used AI to actually help with developing a project and then getting it to fit in that very unique shape that our Banners on Parade are represented in. It's sometimes helpful to combine other tools once you've got your AI generated to remove things from unwanted objects. In this particular view of a scene I'm calling the arches on my red planet, there are two stars that are arcing across the background. And so I removed those. So we're passing that around right now. And you can see where the arc of the stars, the distractions have been gone. In this version, those distractions are now gone and you no longer see them. And I ran it to the printer and I just felt it was incredibly dark. And so I ran it again through Photoshop to lighten it up. And so I've got the version where I've lightened it up some coming around. And so this version lightens it up a little bit more. And I think you see more of the elements, but I still felt like on my inkjet printer running high quality, it came out too dark. And so if I was going to run it to my inkjet again, I would lighten it up even more. But usually when you send them in for printing at a professional print shop, they come out more like the digital image than what happens with the inkjet. I've noticed I print probably 58.5 by 11-inch sheets to my inkjet printer in the last couple of weeks, just because I did a lot of fantasy animals to take out to Sierra Vista Winery. And what I found was my inkjet really used a lot more black and really wiped out a lot of the beautiful colors that I saw in the digital imagery. And so if I was going to be printing a lot more off of my inkjet, I would have to either calibrate, lighten up a lot, or get a different printer, because it just seems like it saturates with the black ink. And I've been just a little bit uncomfortable with that. Coming up to our last slide, once again, thank you to Bill and Dawn for your contributions to this. We're not done yet though, because as soon as we're done with this PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to show you what actual creation using the computer looks like. But I did want to mention that this is Cosmic Cat. You guys have a challenge for next month's member meeting to create your version of Cosmic Cat using whatever media you like to use. And there are some small prints of Cosmic Cat up on the desk where you signed in. So feel free to take one of those if you need that for your reference. We also have it on the in the newsletter, and should be available probably on the website too. So there are lots of places where you can see Cosmic Cat. If you want a digital image, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to give you the digital image so you can work from that for your presentation. And it's super exciting. Carolyn Cunningham has already finished her rendition of Cosmic Cat. So maybe on the break, she'll show you on her cell phone what she's already done, that you guys are now working towards doing similar things. So should be fun to see what's going on with Cosmic Cat next month. And I'm going to bring up now the actual Discord server and bring it into my screen sharing. And we'll make it full size. I think the hardest thing that I had to learn about AI was to learn how to get the software set up. Like most new cool things, they're just too cool for school. And I found it relatively hard to figure out how to buy Midjourney, how to get into this Discord server, and then most importantly, how to set up a private channel. Because there are these public channels on these Discord servers that are just insane, with people putting all their input in, and their stuff is hopping up in between your prompts, and it's just insane. And so you have to figure out how to get into your quiet space by setting up direct, in this particular case, you set up direct messaging with a Midjourney bot. And then you can have a quiet space to do your own creations. And then all of the things that you've created become available in this timeline on Midjourney. And so I can go all the way back through my history. This is the one of the things that we passed around. And you can see that I created this just in the last week as an example to bring in here. And so my timeline goes all the way back through all the various crazy animals that I've created, and up to the place where I started my original Midjourney series. We would eventually find that here. But I thought it might be kind of fun for you guys to give me an Imagine prompt. And so the way it works here on Midjourney is we type in a backslash, the word Imagine, and then it says, well, give me a prompt. Can you, and so somebody give me a prompt. What do you want to create?
48 Chevy.
Sometimes the simple prompts are the best. Let's see what happens. We have to get in line to make this work. So it's now attempting to imagine a 48 Chevy, but we can put another prompt in behind it. So while it's thinking about the Chevy, let's put another one in. What else do we have?
Butterfly.
Butterflies. I have found it's not completely important to have your spelling correctly. It's not always necessary, but I was trying to get the flower bird of paradise to come up, and I kept getting flying birds of paradise as opposed to flower birds of paradise. So sometimes little things like that can trip it up. Wow, butterflies, we're getting people. No, that's not the 48 Chevy, that's butterflies. We're getting butterflies invading people. It's having a little bit of problem with that 48 Chevy. Maybe I need to put 1948 Chevy. That might be it, but we'll see. Okay, there, we're getting our butterflies. 93% of our butterflies have arrived. And now the 48 Chevy's coming into play. Let's go see if we can see those butterflies. Okay, there's the butterflies, and we got those to come through. Now I can upsize these things a couple of different ways. Let's see if we can get a better picture by opening in a browser. There we go. That's a little bit better. Well, it really got fixated on females, didn't it? With the butterfly thing. And then the butterflies that we actually got down there are a little frenzied. And so I might work on that prompt a little bit by saying butterflies in a field with flowers, or and trying to get the lady out of the picture a little bit. All right, so let's see what we got for our. Oh. 48 Chevy, where'd you go? Oh man, that 48 Chevy prompt seemed to be completely disregarded. So let's try that again. /imagine space. I'm going to put 1948 this time. Because maybe next time we could tell it to imagine a 2048 Chevy. All right, well, we're still trying to get the Chevy out of the garage. Does anybody else have something they'd like to imagine? Sure.
On this frog on the skateboard, when you said, did you say cosmic frog on a skateboard?
No, the prompt is on the back. That would have been watercolor of frog on skateboard with neon colors and black background.
So when the colors come in, you are putting that prompt in there, but you're not coming in and changing the colors. It's already in there.
Yeah, and you could, of course, if you wanted to Photoshop it afterwards, make tweaks like that to change the colors. But that frog was just straight off what the machine said. And I tried to get it to give me a cat on a skateboard, and a cat on a bicycle, and a cat on a motorcycle. And let me just tell you, cats do not cooperate. They are angry as the dickens when you try to make them ride sports equipment. Yeah. All right. So we got a couple of Chevys responding now. Once we got it going and out of the garage, let's take a look at some of these.
Question.
Sure.
Can you change those Chevy colors by a prompt?
You can try.
Did you have to start over completely and tell it specific color?
You have to start a new prompt. Sometimes I copy the previous prompt and paste it in the Imagine box, and then just modify what I want to try differently.
So let's say that you like the image of the first top left, and you want the Chevy to be white. Can you actually click on that image and say white?
No.
Chevy?
No.
No.
You can upsize it, and you can ask for variations of it, but you can't give more input in the variations. But that would be something that you could change in Photoshop. But no, you can't. You can't control this as much as you as artists would like to control it. This works well for me because I like the uncontrollable in my art. And I strive for often true abstraction in my art, no shape, form. Judges hate me. So this is something that works really well for me. I think Bill has demonstrated how it can work well for him. And this may be something that you guys enjoy playing with or like for ideas. But if you are trying to exercise a great degree of control, you're not going to get it. What we can do with these vehicles is we can, if we decided we like the one on the top left, there is then a way for us to hit an upsize button to upsize that version, and then it will give us a single picture of that rather than a 4-up of that. And I have it running through the upsize, and there it upsized very quickly. And so now we have that in a 1-up. So if you were going to go to print with something like that, then you'd have it in a single form and not in a 4-up form. I want to take a look at the colored Chevys that we got though, because I noticed that we also got some colored ones here. Red was, I guess, the color back then, that if it wasn't black, it was red. Yeah,
So I noticed that a lot of colors are dark in the background.
right.
Is that because it recognizes your pattern to go for black background? And so has learned who you are and your aesthetic
Yes,
downturns, I'm gonna say, turns, I'm
Yes.
gonna say,
yes.
or preference?
Yes,
Sure,
and
okay.
even though I don't give it a lot of hearts, you can give your favorites hearts, and I don't do it very often. But because of what I keep generating and what I keep upsizing, then it learns from those patterns what's good for me, what I like. So let's say, imagine a 2048 Chevy on light background and see what it does for us. Probably will give us searchlights. We can start another prompt if anybody is excited about hearing something.
That's it.
Anything?
Sunset on the beach.
What?
Sunset on the beach.
Sunset on the beach? Is that a cocktail? Are we going to get cocktails? No, probably if we tried to use the actual cocktail word, it would say no. You can't use that word.
Mushrooms.
Okay, I'm just saying that based on what I'm seeing here coming up for the 2048 Chevy, they don't think Chevy's gone very far, do they? They're like, wow. They're in Cuba and they're still rebuilding the 1948 Chevys. Oh my goodness.
Different paint scheme.
Oh yeah, those are I don't see the future there at all. Is this because Chevy's not going to win the electric car race? What's going on here?
It's only because Chevy was ahead of its time.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Yeah.
I like how it suddenly went to a complete minimalistic approach versus like the completely complex background that we had.
Right. And now it's like, okay, it's basically giving us an illustration, even though that's
Yeah.
not exactly what we asked for, right? It thinks that somebody besides me is running the computer right now. It's really having a little bit of a nervous breakdown, probably. All right, so now we've got our sunset on the beach. So let's see what these look like. I'm going to go ahead and open it in a browser so we get a little bit better quality on it. So far, none of these are working for me because I don't see a single dog.
You didn't ask for it.
I didn't ask for a
You
dog.
didn't ask for people.
Oh, wait, there's a dog. Bottom left, there's a dog in there.
Question on this. If you did this kind of image, I wanna make sure I understood you correctly earlier. So somebody pulls up one of these and says, oh, that's really cool, now I'm gonna paint that image.
Yep, that's cool.
But it's not really the person's artwork who's painting the image.
Your original artwork is your original copyrightable piece. The picture that you painted it from, anybody could use that to paint from.
It's like taking a photo. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but, okay, so I belong to a group on Facebook that is called Reference Photos for Use in Art or something like this, and people that take photos, post them up there, and then people paint from those photos. And so because the author has given you permission to paint from those, you can do so, right?
So this implies it's giving you permission to do whatever you want.
As long as you've read your user agreement and you have the right to use those images in any way that you want to. And this is the reason that I paid Midjourney almost $100 for a year, was because their free agreement said I did not have the right to use those images. I had the right to generate them and do nothing with them. So if I wanted to paint using that as a reference or print that and put it in an art show, I didn't have the right to do that. Now, if I print it and put it in an art show and you want to take a photo of it and paint off that photo, I couldn't say that I had a copyright on that, but you would have a copyright on the original image that you had produced from it. And so it's this world for me right now where I don't really own this art that I'm producing, and I don't really care. You know, I'm not Andy Warhol. Who cares? You know, it's just, it's not going to have that kind of value in the long run. So as an artist and the curator of these images, I look at each of them when they come up like this and say, are there elements in here? First, are there elements that are distracting or not believable? And all four of these actually look pretty good. There's not anything jumping out of me at me that makes this not work. Any one of these could work without that thing jumping out, like the hand being backwards, or a rock being in a place that it wouldn't be, or the surf line looking like it's not consistent. So there likely were enough reference photos for the computer to work with that it can generate something really good. I have found that if I try to generate variations of the first image, things will get wackier. Rocks will move in weird directions, shadows will change and not make sense. And so I tend to like to use one of the four originals if I'm going to upsize anything. And if I don't like any of those four, then I'll move on to the next thing.
Now, let's say you're doing a still life. Can you tell it where you want the light source to be?
You could try.
Oh, thank you.
You could try. It might understand that. And the more that you trained it, the more likely it would be to understand that.
If you were to ask something like a future, let's see, who would be a presidential picture, the president of the United States in 2024?
Oh, no.
Do you think AI would come up with something along those lines?
Let's see. Let's see what happens here. Well, I was just wondering if it was going to be Kamala or Gavin or who, but let's see.
Unless it takes a look at past art of different workings of presidents and puts something together.
Well, and I'm seeing something that looks like it could be Barack there. I may not recognize everyone, but I'll try to get it bigger for you guys. I mean, it's almost looking like it's telling us that Obama's going to run again, but I don't think he can he? He's already had too many terms. Wow, like 100%. That's what this AI is thinking. What we should have said, presidential portrait on a red planet, see what we came up with. Okay, I'm gonna upsize it again. Wow. I don't think it's right. I don't think it knows what it's doing. I think he's termed out. The computer has frozen. Oh,
Perhaps those images have been produced before, and that's why we're seeing.
it could be. The lower left one is the only one that looks like it's a throwback, younger. Everything else is aging a previous president. But yeah, that was an interesting prompt to see what it came up with. And maybe we should run it now for Russia and see what 2024 is going to look like for Russia, huh? Yeah, I don't think it was very accurate with that. And there are some of these AI programs that are specializing in certain functions like the stock market. And so they're trained in stock analysis. And so specifically, you could ask that bot a question about the stock market, and you may get a money-worthy answer. As far as image generator and the future prediction of the presidential election, I don't think I'm putting money on this one.
That's the what Tesla does the rest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I bought at the bottom and it's looking good. So
Well, lucky you.
yeah, I know. I was paying attention, sold my Verizon and bought Tesla. Okay, anybody else got an interesting prompt?
Okay.
In the back?
Criteria, in the prompt, how many criteria can you do?
You can put a lot, and I've used long prompts. I have a couple up here that when I was trying to get out of my funky animal mode, I used something like mansion on red planet with hibiscus, anthurium, orchids, scarlet sage, and a waterfall with 3 moons. Well, I didn't get 3 moons. I only got 1 moon. But I do like this picture that came out from it. So it can be a pretty long prompt, but I think that the longer it gets, the more interpretation, the more in left field the program can get, and it doesn't always come back with everything that you'd hoped, and then sometimes misinterprets. I had to take in this prompt in an earlier version, I used birds of paradise, and I got a lot of birds, and so I took, oh, here it's this one. This one was a similar prompt, but tropical jungle, hibiscus flowers, anthurium, bird of paradise, orchids, scarlet sage with waterfall on red planet with planet Earth in the sky. And I used an aspect ratio of 10:8. You use a ratio if you don't want it to be square. So if you want it to fit 8 by 10, 8.5 by 11, you use an aspect ratio. And so you can see here, it interpreted birds of paradise as what looks to be maybe a hummingbird, and then some things in the sky that are a little bit weird shaped, but the flowers are nice. The waterfalls are nice, but I think the birds in the sky are a little weird. But I think the thing that weirded me out most about this, and it's a little hard to see on the screen here, but all of those little red things flying around that kind of look like butterflies, but when they fall on the water, they don't. And I thought all of those little things like these things were distracting in the print. And so I didn't go with this one and simplified the prompt a little bit to get rid of the birds of paradise. So the birds would come out of there.
You find this to be more effective for creating non-realistic images as opposed to photographic images?
I think that partly it's because that's what I've been going for in my line is in my timeline is fantasy. So it doesn't bring back realistic things for me. But this Mid-Journey is the one that is theoretically the most photorealistic of the AI software out there. So I think that we see a lot of fantasy in my timeline because I tend to go with that fantasy kind of thing. I asked it to show me what a mansion would look like on the red planet. And sometimes I'll start looking for something like a mansion and I'll end up finding something like the arches and then just throwing all the mansions away because I think the top left of this 4-up, the top left that I upsized is the strongest of the 4 images, the most appealing of those 4 images. But I think that if you change your timeline to look at things that are more realistic, like that 4-up that I passed around of the still life, had a more realistic feel to it than some of my red planet things. So it's a matter of training your timeline to what you're looking to produce from it. And for me, it's also gotten very good at doing some of the watercolor animals that I like, but unfortunately the inkjet printer hasn't brought the colors of those up to the level that I would like them to be. All right, anybody have another prompt or another question? Because we're about to run through my hour here, and I don't know about you guys, but I'd like a break. Anything else?
A brown angel.
What do you want? A what angel?
A brown angel.
A brown angel. LE or EL? I don't want to get the angle.
Yeah.
EL? See, I knew I was going to do it wrong.
Brown angle? Yes.
Yeah, brown angle. That's not what we're going for, right? This is where spelling might count. I learned recently that I can ask it in these moments where I have a little bit of time, what info I have, meaning where am I at with my expenditures on my account, because you're given a certain amount of time to use over the course of a year. And so from time to time, I like to check in on that to see where I'm at with my usage. So we'll see if that actually comes up here to show to us as well. All right, we got a brown angel, which looks like maybe she would be the partner of the president.
It looked like an image that was in that award-winning picture they showed us earlier.
Oh, right, the state fair picture. So when you're like evaluating these things, the big deal, hands and feet. So the top left, she's got bad hands. That right hand, the fingers are just going crazy. The one underneath on the bottom left, really doofy right hand, not good. Her foot's nice though. The bottom right The left hand is odd. And so of all of our angels, I think the only one that would be usable based on hands and feet is the top right. Because otherwise there is a deformity there that comes up so often with human characters. And I don't understand the shortcomings with that. Why do the hands and feet not come out right? Why is AI not getting the hands and feet right on humans? But this is a big problem if you're trying to render humans into the scene, that they often, their extremities do not come up looking correct at all.
What program are you using?
I'm using Midjourney, and it is run on a Discord interface. So you have to get Midjourney set up by buying from them, and then you log into Midjourney using Discord, and it'll download automatically. If you get far enough to buy Midjourney and start to try to run it, then the Discord application will download automatically on your computer. And it's not the most simple one to use, but since I've learned how to use it, I'm probably sticking, well, since I've paid to use it for a year, I'm probably sticking with it.
At least for the year.
Yeah, at least for the year. Bill, you had your hand up?
I was just mentioning that it's where we live has an impact depending on your connection to the internet. Because those images are really being generated somewhere else and then downloaded to your computer. They're not being generated necessarily on your computer. So if you've got a slower internet connection, it's going to be slower than if you have a speedier one.
Yeah, not recommended for Carolyn Cunningham's house. No. I actually have two internet connections, and both are fairly fast. I have one that runs at about 100, and then I have another that runs around 35 most of the time. So I have overcome my challenges, but that's partly because, as you may have read in the Mountain Democrat article, I still work in the technology field, and so I'm accessing data over the internet all the time and can justify two fast internet connections at my place. I'm using Starlink, and I'm also Cal.net. Starlink is the fastest one, but I had to really get some sky clearance to get a fast connection with them.
No, I have a question. If you have something, an image up there and there's just one little thing wrong with it, you want to correct, are you able to correct it by saying that man's not right, or?
No, the best bet, if you have that happen, is to try to correct it in Photoshop. And once again, hands would be hard because hands are hard. On the other hand, this image that I have that I printed out for you guys, I did notice after I printed it out that there was a bit of white that I think is very distracting. I'm going to try to open it in the browser here real quick and point to it. This is the one that I said Carolyn would never let get by. And so this is the one where I got rid of this star line that's running across here, but this little thing here is supposed to probably be a highlight, but you see it just looks wrong. See that right there, Carolyn? See that white right in there? It's hugely distracting. And that, I think, if you went into Photoshop, because I got rid of that asteroid line and you really can't see it from where you are. I can see it on my screen, but the white you can see. So I think I'd go in and pull a little bit of the background right next to it, that darkness, down into that flower, because I think it would get rid of that distraction. Otherwise, I think this image is okay to print. Yes, Pam?
So to your question and building on your Photoshop editing, is that nowadays in Photoshop, you have AI from generator 2, so you can, when you want to, in the past, when you wanted to replace or make an adjustment to something, you would kind of clone, or it would look into your own picture to try to generate something similar. Today, you have the option to actually write a prompt saying replace blah, 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 or replace highlights, and it's going to be AI generated. It's not going to actually, it's going to look at your picture, but it's going to go and on the web and come back with the answer. So it is interesting because now you can actually create in Midjourney to then downloading Photoshop and keep moving on into a new AI that is then helping you with what you're doing. So
And that's with full blown Photoshop, because I have Photoshop Elements and it doesn't have that. So
Yeah.
that's what you get for paying the big bucks. You get more capabilities.
It's actually,
here's subscription.
I think it's actually beta. Is it in the full blown version?
You are probably right. It isn't beta, but you can use it as your own now.
And it's amazing. I went through a thing yesterday about it.
Yeah. But what is really beta is their equivalent of Midjourney, which is a flyer. Firefly, like that. Yeah, and so that is completely, you create from scratch, just like Midjourney. But then in each one of their applications or programs, whatever you want to call it, like Photoshop, they now have a AI opportunity, except at Lightroom. But the AI is basically going, and it's slow. It's not true. Lightroom, actually, that's not true what I'm saying. It's using for the noise reduction. It's an AI noise reduction now that you can ask. It's fabulous. Unbelievable. Yes.
The only
Yes.
thing about it though is it's small images still.
And
Yeah, the images are, as far as resolution goes, they're small. And if you want to make use of them, you really have to.
And that's a really good point, is getting a software package where you can export out the images large enough that they're printable. And it's one of the things that I do like about Midjourney, because if you upsize an image and then you save it from the browser here, if I were to do a save as, this image would come out at almost 2 gigs. Now that's not huge compared to what we can get off of a camera in terms of resolution. So, but this was one of the downsides that you found with DALL-E, was that you couldn't export out in a large enough format that you actually could get a print out of it.
I'd bring a shot toward that.
Yeah. But I did want to say that Adobe is really taking the high road. They are only sucking images that they have copyright allowances to suck into their AI engine. And a lot of the AI engines are not taking the high road, and they're harvesting everything they can off the internet. So if we have the opportunity to support Adobe in the future, the way that they're behaving really makes me want to do it, because they're doing it the right way. And
one of the things about Adobe is that every single image has a link. So if you generated something and someone else is using it, it's traceable back to you. So if someone is, oh, I want to use this, you can always trace who generated the first image or the picture or anything. And so they work really hard to preserve the copyrights of artists throughout their entire platform of applications that they offer. And that's really and that's why it's taking them a long time also to catch up in being able to develop out of their beta phase, because they want to make sure that once they release it out of the beta phase, that everything is assuring the artist or the photographers that they keep their copyrights on everything they produce.